Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Art of MMA. I'm your host, Mike Ginn. I am joined, as always, by the mechanic, Brandon Cuttino. Brandon, what's up, buddy?
Hey, man, it's going well, man. Besides the snow happening in the Northeast. But other than that, it's always good to be here.
I told you off air, I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm down here in Florida. We got a cold front. It's like 55 degrees today. We're freezing our asses off. I don't even know what you're talking about. So, for those that don't know, there is a big storm going on in the Northeast. It cost us a guest today. We were supposed to have Erik Johnson on, one of the co-founders of Art of MMA, one of the lead interviewers. He will, however, pop up later in the episode when we're doing our picks. I'm going to get his picks slid in there for us. But until then, we got some news to talk about, Brandon. PFL finally announced their lineup. No actual matches yet. Still waiting on that schedule, but they announced that starting April 23rd, they're going to start their tournaments. They're going to do, I believe, 4 or 5 divisions, but they announced lightweight and featherweight rosters already. Starting off with the featherweights, some of the more notable names that you might actually recognize is Lance Palmer, obviously, 2-time champion. He's been banking that $1 million back-to-back years. You also got British standout like Brendan Loughnane and, people like Tyler Diamond, Bubba Jenkins, who was in the UFC for a second. Anybody at featherweight really stand out to you?
To be honest with you, I kind of am looking to see what Bubba Jenkins is going to do. Because, like I say, he was well known in Bellator. But then it's one of the things, like, I feel like he was like one of those guys that was like gym hopping for a while. So maybe things just weren't clicking for him there. So let's see how the PFL treats him. And also, too, I kind of am interested to see how Tyler Diamond does as well. Because, I mean, he was from the Ultimate Fighter. People knew who he was. Like, he was supposed to be, somebody who was supposed to be a breakout star. But I guess in the UFC just didn't work out. So maybe here in the PFL, this is where he can really launch himself.
Yeah, definitely. And then we flip over to the lightweight division. Obviously, the name on everybody's lips, Anthony Pettis, came over. He said boldly he's going to be the face of PFL. He's got to go through Nathan Schulte first. He's going to be trying to do like Lance Palmer, get his 3rd straight title. You got other people like a lot of UFC veterans, Olivier Aubin-Mercier, Clay Collard, Johnny Case, Marcin Held's another one, Ahmed Alev. So a lot of names in that lightweight division that have popped up on UFC cards before. Anybody stand out in the lightweights for you?
Yeah, actually, Marcin Held, I actually forgot that he was with them until I resaw the roster. But I actually was a big fan of his when he was in Bellator. Like the dude has sick jiu-jitsu. It was just really his striking, that kind of wasn't his forte. So I'm kind of hoping to see that maybe his striking has evolved, and let's see what he can do. And also too, I kind of am interested in Clay Collard. Like a lot of people know him because last year he was boxing. I think he went 5-1 in boxing last year, and now he's going to come back to MMA. So I kind of want to see how his boxing is going to translate for him.
I'd say look out for Ahmed Alev. I saw him in a couple fights the last couple years, and he's really tough. Like he didn't win. I think he went 1-1 in the fights I saw, but just uber tough. One of those guys is just a tough out. But obviously the odds-on favorite, Schulte, Anthony Pettis, they probably should line up in the finals at some point. Speaking of lining up in the lightweight division, we thought we had an answer. Maybe we didn't. Dana tried to throw it in. Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler at 258. Chandler obviously coming off a very quick knockout of Dan Hooker. Oliveira's been sitting on the sidelines for a few months waiting to see what happens, holding out for a title fight. Well-deserved title fight at that. Oliveira said no to the fight because it was non-title at 258. 11 days notice, a fight that important, he wasn't going to take it. But Brandon, are we going to have an answer anytime soon to this lightweight? As far as Dustin Poirier goes, he was just on the air the other day with another network and said UFC hasn't even contacted him at all since the fight. Not even this, like the interviewer was like, to even say congratulations. Nope. They have not said congratulations. They haven't said what's possibly next. Is that a case of the UFC still being bitter that, that he beat the Golden Boy? Or is it a case that they just honestly don't know?
I feel like saying that Michael Chandler is the guy that they want to promote. And Dustin Poirier said that he didn't want to give it to Michael Chandler because Michael Chandler only has one win. So this way you have, yeah, exactly, he hasn't earned it. So this way you have Chandler fight Oliveira, somebody who Dustin Poirier was talking highly of, who's on a 7-fight winning streak, I believe. Just beat Tony Ferguson, so he's real high. So then this way, if Chandler beats Oliveira, then that way it's gonna be like, well, Dustin, he just beat the guy that you was willing to fight. He's 2-0 now in the UFC. What more do you want from Chandler?
And Dustin just said that, actually. Dustin said he's willing to wait. Let Oliveira and Chandler go fight before this was even announced that he turned down the fight.
Mm-hmm.
Just the other day, Poirier was like, let them go fight. Like, I'll wait. I'm cool. So he's actually probably more interested in the Conor rematch for the trilogy because he knows how much money he'll make off that. And he's obviously interested, even though we've already talked about this in length, it's never going to happen with the Nate Diaz. They're just honestly on two different paths. Like, they're going this way. It might be a fun grudge match, but it's not something Dana's going to make. It doesn't make sense for him, especially with the UFC title picture.
Well, I was going to say, I think for Dustin, I mean, to me, I think he sees Nate Diaz as another money fight as well. Because I mean, like I say, they were supposed to fight, but I mean, you know the people, man. Nate, the Diaz brothers have a big following. You know, it's gonna show up. So
yeah, they're gonna be asking for Nick to come back until he's like 80 years old and gray.
Yep.
It's just one of those things. But I'm interested. Obviously, Gaethje chimed in. He sat there and said Dana just doesn't like Dana's just screwing everybody over because Dana doesn't want to admit that Khabib is done, and B, he was hoping beyond hope to get Khabib and Conor for a third fight or a second fight to make that money. And now that's out the door, Dana, I don't think Dana knows what the hell to do with it. We've all gone online. Every single one of us have pretty much agreed that the matchup should be Dustin versus Oliveira, Chandler versus Gaethje, Conor versus Tony. And if you really want to throw in another one, Javier Dos Anjos, who's back in the lightweight division, former champion, came back down from 170, looked incredible against Paul Felder, against Dan Hooker. Like, throw that in there and let them kind of work that out. Have like even a little tournament if you want. And just let's see how it works out. And I think that would be incredible. But, you know, ultimately the ball's on the UFC's court. Hopefully they make up their minds sooner than later because right now they're just holding up the entire division. Speaking of the UFC fighter Casey Kenney got in a little bit of hot water this week. It's no secret the last few years, and I don't want to put it on the Me Too movement, but the last few years there's definitely been a lot more awareness brought to the way men speak to women appropriately, right? You don't, you know, a lot of times men, myself included, I'm sure yourself included, even if it's unintentional, over the last, you know, however our lifetime, you know, can be perceived as being condescending sometimes, can be perceived as sexual, can be just disrespectful, even if it's not even intended. Sometimes, especially with awareness as it continues to go, and we become more aware and more educated, probably the best way to put it, of how better to handle ourselves in certain situations. Well, Sean O'Malley has a show, as we all know. He has his podcast with his buddy, and they like to have fun. They like to have fun. They goof off, and they kind of led Casey Kenney into this. Not gonna lie, but Casey Kenney had a chance to answer it or not answer it. That was 100% his choice.
Yep.
They asked him, would they bang Megan Anderson? Would he bang Megan Anderson? Kenney said, nah, wouldn't do it. And then added a little bit of salt on top of it of why he wouldn't do it. But when you're led into something like that, Brandon, you can't put all the blame on Kenney. You can put a lot of the blame on Kenney, no doubt, because he's ultimately in control of his own words. But do you think, and I don't want to get you in trouble with the missus, but do you think that this was an appropriate response, like the entire outcry that came out after this? And I hate the whole hero complex because everybody wants to stand up and be a hero for Megan Anderson like she needs you to be a hero. Yeah. Megan Anderson's a UFC fighter, and I know she's dealt with her mental health issues over the years. So she's been very, very public about it. But she's a UFC fighter. She doesn't need you. She doesn't need me to defend her. Casey, she could probably go fight Casey Kenney right now. They're close to the same weight. I mean, she really wants to handle that. So I hate when people kind of come and play the hero complex. But do you think this? What do you think of the situation? I'll just put it like that. I'm not going to lead you into it.
I was just going to say, like, because I want to say, like, the way how I saw it was I felt like they were taking fan questions, and a fan had asked that, and the other host, he was one who just asked, like, he just asked the fan question. Now, yeah, you're right, Casey Kenney. Hey, like, to me, I just felt like he was in a relaxed atmosphere. You know, he had his guard down, had his walls down. You know, he felt relaxed. Felt like it was just three friends, you know, hanging out at home. I guess he just forgot that. Oh, wait, you know, there's a show. Yeah, you know. So I mean, hey, like I said, you can fault both people. It's like that one time where I think, what was it? Like Dustin Poirier, he did an interview. I think a guy like asked him like, "Oh man, would you kill Conor McGregor in the fight?" And Dustin was like, "Oh man, I wouldn't want to kill anybody." And then the host, then the host was like, "Yeah, you're right. That was a dumb question I just asked you." So like, yeah, you put blame on both people. So Casey Kenney, hopefully, man, he learns from this. He'll just be.
He may never do another interview again. He's like, no.
Yeah, but hey, I definitely know a lot of people who are not looking for Dominic Cruz to whoop on him. So we'll see what happens.
I just think, like everybody wants to run and like, oh, he needs to do sensitivity training. I think people are overreacting. Like, I think it was bad what he said. He apologized for it immediately when Megan Anderson called him out on it. And that's the end of it. I don't think he went overly grotesque. I don't think he went like to certain extremes. He was having fun, like you said, and it was inappropriate. And I think they probably should leave it at that. That's my 2 cents on it. I think the whole world kind of overreacted. And like I said, Megan Anderson doesn't need you to defend her. Like, she can defend herself. And that's one of the principles we always talk about, demeaning women. Everybody wants to be a hero. Like, oh, I'm so sorry this happened to you. It's horrible. It's this, that. Say it sucks. Leave it at that. Like there is definitely that line in the sand too. To segue into women fighters, Jessica Penney's back. It's been now well over 2 years, actually over 3 years now, 2017, almost 3.5 years since she's fought. She had that very long suspension from USADA. She was fighting it at first, and she accepted it. Then she had to wait two years after that. She's fighting Hannah Goldie at 260, UFC 260. Brandon, my question is this: does she deserve it? Does she deserve to go straight to the UFC after being off for that long?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say she is a UFC fighter. She is under contract, So I don't see why not. She can't be back in there.
My argument would be that she's lost 3 straight fights.
Yeah, but they didn't cut her though. They didn't cut her. If they cut her, it'd be a different story. But I don't think they cut her. She was still under contract with them.
So somebody like Jessica Penney, obviously not getting any younger. I'm pretty sure she's in her mid-30s at this point. Might have to look it up to be sure. But somebody, 38 now, sorry, coming off 3 straight losses, obviously 3 tough opponents. She lost to Joanna Champion. She lost to Andrade. She lost to Danielle Taylor, who's always been a tough fighter. But she hasn't won since 2014. I don't think it would be inappropriate to say, hey, go to Invicto, win a fight, and then we'll bring you back to UFC for a fight. Like, that sounds fair, right?
I mean, hey man, they didn't cut her though. If they cut her, I'd understand that, but they didn't cut her. That's what I'm saying. She was still under contract. Hey, think about BJ Penn. That dude was on a losing streak. They never cut him.
But BJ Penn was a legend. There's a little difference between that and a person like Jessica Penney that's lost way more fights than she's won in the last 7 years. 7 years, she's 2-4. So she hasn't won consistently since 2014, where she beat Nick Dilly and Randa Marcos. So that was a very long time ago. And I don't know. I just don't think she deserves it. I think there's better fighters that come out there. She never looked really good in the UFC. She got knocked out by both Joanna Champion and Andrade. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I feel like I don't see what the obsession with UFC putting her on. She has a name, but like I said, she hasn't won in 6 years, so 7 years. So I keep forgetting it's 2021 now. 2020 lasted so long and wore on us so much that we can't let it go. Speaking of some fights, we got a couple fight changes last second for this weekend. Obviously, between COVID and injuries, UFC Vegas 18 is changing quite a bit. Our good friend Julio Arce is off the card. He already got replaced. Came out today now. Andre Ewell, who was already a substitution for somebody, has now lost his opponent, and now Cody Stamen stepping in. Does that change the way he approaches that fight? Him and Cody Stamen and Askar aren't that much different.
No. I mean, Cody Stamen was supposed to fight Ewell, but Ewell is out, so Cody Stamen is fighting.
I'm sorry, you're right. I said it backwards. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's fighting Attar now. So, I mean, hey man, we'll see what happens. You know, I mean, I kind of feel bad because I think I saw Yul was trying to say that basically he got a false positive because he did two negative tests. Then they had him do another one, but it was a false positive. But the doctor still said, "Oh, we're gonna have you still wait 10 days." So don't really know what's going on.
Unfortunately, in this area, you can't take any chances.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I said, Julio Arce fight is off. That changed over. Now, I believe it's Day that stepped in. I think it's Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, Martin Day's fighting Timur Valiev now. Actually, that should be a pretty exciting fight. I actually like Martin Day quite a bit. I saw him fight not too long ago. That was pretty fun. But yeah, a lot of fights getting moved around. Speaking of fights getting moved around, another fight added to UFC 258 in 11 days. We're talking about Jim Miller and Bobby Green. That's going to be a fun fight. Like, I'm looking forward to that fight. Do you have any like favorites in that one?
Always represent New Jersey, baby. Jim Miller, man, got to represent.
The Miller Brothers MMA. Another fight got moved around. Another COVID test. Chris Weidman, Uriah Hall. The rematch was in the works. Supposed to be for UFC 258. Signed official. Now it's getting moved to April. Hopefully it happens in April. That's what they're targeting. Maybe even as a UFC 261 in Singapore. So that would be pretty cool. Something a little different from Fight Island and UFC Vegas. We might actually have to come up with another name for a card. UFC Singapore 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But we'll see. Another fight seems to be official. Khamzat Chimaev and Leon Edwards seem to have a date, March 13th. Location still to be determined. The odds-on favorite are Vegas, but that has not been officially announced. Chimaev has posted videos recently with him working out again, so hopefully he has his COVID aftermath in control. But he doesn't have his mouth in control because, Neil Magny, who's probably one of the most lovable guys in all of UFC. Like, he just comes to fight, puts his hard hat on, fights everybody. Now him and Chimaev have a war of words on Twitter. And Neil Magny said he would slap him on sight. You got any opinion on that one?
Nah, man. Hey, people talking, Yeah, staying out of that one.
Yeah, it's all over some respect. Obviously, he thinks Chimaev has handpicked his opponents. And Neil Magny's fought a who's who in that division for a long time. So Neil Magny's earned that respect. Chimaev hasn't really been big on giving people respect, though. I will say, people that have fought Chimaev, he's been very respectful for. Because I remember he finished John Phillips, and then a few cards later, John Phillips is fighting again, and Chimaev's in the back showing him pointers on how to not get stuck where he got stuck the first time.
Yep.
So for those that I guess know Chimaev, he's actually a pretty good guy. But from the outside, it's almost like a Conor McGregor situation where people kind of look at him as being brash and moving up the food chain a little quicker than they want him to because they've been obviously there grinding away for a while. Maybe not much unsimilar to Michael Chandler, though Michael Chandler, of course, has the huge resume with Bellator. So that is that. For the news, we're going to roll into a few results, and then we're going to hop into our picks. This episode's going to kind of roll along today. A couple events happened. One not too far from me, XMMA 1, happened down in West Palm Beach in Florida. A couple people you might know, James Vick, Francisco Rivera fought for the first time in 4 years. Vick was the victim of a vicious knockout. Fiallo just crushed him in the second round. Did you catch any of that stuff?
No, I just saw the highlights of the James Vick knockout, of course, because everybody was talking about it.
I'll tell you one vicious knockout after not fighting for 4 years. And we literally just talked about Francisco Rivera from that infamous Fairfax card where, Alex Soto, Brad Tavares, Cowboy Cerrone, and all those guys. And, of course, me and Erik Johnson finally met up to meet and make Art of MMA. Francisco Rivera was on that card, and he fought Alex Soto on that card. But he hasn't fought in 4 years, came out. If you see the highlight, it was a vicious knockout of Ryan Lilly. Anybody wants to look up on YouTube, XMMA1. That was a very vicious knockout. Not a lot of other notable names on that card, but something new to look out. We always got our eye on new promotions, especially when they have a chance to showcase some former fighters that we may know, and a lot of good up-and-coming fighters. So Andre Fiallo now might have more of a chance to get a name for himself after knocking out a UFC vet like James Vick. So that's always fun to watch. KSW, which has been on the rise for quite a while, producing quite a few MMA fighters going to the UFC. They just had KSW 58. In the main event, Daniel Torres knocked out Parzesi in the first round for their featherweight title. And then the co-main, Kolecki defeated Zawanda by unanimous decision. Not many other names on there, but like I said, definitely something to keep an eye on for KSW, Brandon, because especially a lot of those UFC Fight Island cards have had a ton of those guys coming over and putting on a show. You know, we're sitting there every time they come over, there's just like fight of the night. So
definitely something. Go ahead. Like I was gonna say, I feel like KSW is now like the new M1, because like back in the day, M1 used to be where a lot of the Europeans came from.
And I think some of the people from M1 are actually running KSW.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So now it seems like more and more people are coming out of KSW now.
Another event that happened, we're talking about LFA 98. They're on their march to their 100th show coming up in February at some point, I think late February. They've been promoting that. Their main event, Josh Fremd knocked out Bruno Oliveira in the first round of their middleweight tournament semifinal. The co-main, Lucas Clay Oganovich by decision. And then Brandon brought it to my attention, Dakota Bush had an absolutely vicious knockout of Austin Clem. So definitely check out LFA. They're pushing on towards their 100th. And now I actually want to slow down just a little bit, Brandon, because this is your alley. We talked about it last week. Glory 77. I watched quite a bit of it when I had a chance. Terrific show. I mean, absolutely terrific show. You told people it was going to be good. You had the favorites pretty much winning throughout the fight, so there really wasn't any upsets per se. But break down the card for me a little bit.
I mean, well, let's see. We're gonna like. I will tell you. So the one fight,
let's start with the heavyweight, a little heavyweight tournament with the four heavyweight fighters.
Okay, all right. Let's see. Well, the champion heavyweight Rico Verhoeven, which everybody knows, especially in kickboxing. It was just one of those things where it's just like, man, it's kind of like what Bellator has been doing with their Grand Prix, is to actually have the champion in the tournament themselves. It was a little interesting that to see him in it,
spices things up.
Yeah, and plus it'd be two fights in one night. So him, Hedzi Gerges, like I said, they had their beef. They came out. I mean, hey, Hedzi, tough dude. Thanks for taking the fight on like 10 days notice, but I mean, he just got outworked, outmatched. Rico just took it to him. He won on decisions. And then the other fight, which is where I kind of like saying judging for that whole event was a little all over the place. I thought my man Richter's won it because he actually won the last tournament. But because I actually thought he won the first and the third round, but they gave it to the other guy, and his nickname is Tank. He's actually he's actually a Moroccan as well. So Moroccans, they love kickboxing as well. But I mean, hey, it was a good fight. It was a tough fight, and then in the main event, I mean, he was in a war with the Richters. So by the time he got to Rico, he was basically kind of done anyway. But then Rico put it on him. I think he did an outside leg kick, and when he fell, I guess he must have landed on his hand, and that's what really stopped the fight because I guess his hand was hurt, and that's why he couldn't continue.
Whole situation was kind of weird. I wasn't even sure. Like when they all like the medics and all, I was like, "What's going on?" I didn't really get it.
Yeah, like if you were really like me, I was really watching, so I like understand I've been paying attention to everything. Like I could see that he kept on looking at his hand, so I was like, oh man, he must have hurt his hand. And then I think they said that it was when he fell down, he just landed on his hand awkwardly. So hey man, hopefully Rico and Jamal Ben Sadiq can run it back hopefully soon. This year, maybe in the spring or summertime. Because that's really who should be next for Rico. Then, of course, we had the light heavyweight championship, Alex Pereira versus Artem Vahytov. Like I said, Vahytov's coming off for like 340-day layoff. It was a good fight, close fight. I had decision. Pereira, I had Pereira winning. Some judges, they have Vahytov winning. Like some judges had Vahytov win, I think, all 5 rounds. I didn't really see it that way, but like I said, I'm not a judge. saying Pereira, to me, he had good combinations. Yes, like Volkov was doing pressure. Like it's like we talked about. Like, what are you looking for more? Because Volkov was kind of always going forward. Yes, Pereira was going back, but though Pereira was landing shots, I felt like Volkov wasn't really landing as much.
I thought 49-46 per Pereira was probably more accurate.
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, I mean, I know, I gave Volkov the 4th round. I think I gave him the 2nd round too. So I maybe had it 3-2 for Pereira. So I mean, kudos to him, man. Be a middleweight champion and a light heavyweight champion. You know, let's see what happens from there. Of course, the fight that I was really looking forward to, which was the welterweight championship, Cedric Doumbe versus Murto Grunhart, number 3 for knockout. Those guys. Yeah, man. It was like the weirdest thing because first, man, Murto went for a flying knee, landed outside the ring, but he like landed on the foam, so like he hurt his back. So like, oh man, so now everybody's worried that, oh man, this fight might not happen. Murto continues, and then boom, he got dropped for his troubles for staying in it. So that's over. Now everybody's wondering who's next for Doumbe. I think there are plenty of options. I really want to say probably the number one thing, because even he said it, but it's my man Hamcha, who could be next. But I mean, he does have beef with Nabioff. They're 1-1 as well, so maybe Nabioff could be next for him. And then the women's title fight? Like I said, Tiffany Van Soest. Yeah, Tiffany Van Soest versus Aline Pereira, which is Alex Pereira's little sister. I mean, like I said, man, Tiffany Van Soest, too much for her, man. She was just putting on a clinic, man. It was a kickboxing clinic, good movement. Like I said, Aline Pereira only had 9 fights. She was 8-1, in her whole career, and she only had 2 fights total in glory. While you got somebody like Tiffany Van Soest, who's been all over the place, who's fought for many promotions, won many belts. I think just experience took care of her. And then there was the light heavyweight fight. Was my man Abina versus Luis Tavares. I thought Abina won. The judges had Tavares, and then boom, next thing you know, Abina thought the same thing. He said it to Tavares. They got into a little altercation after the fight, and they had to separate them. So we'll see what happens.
Speaking of heavyweights, what do you think about Rico maybe fighting Martin Pacas? Because he was in the alternate bout, I guess, for the heavyweight tournament in case somebody got hurt or fell out. He had a knockout over Bali. So is he a possible opponent coming up?
Nah, nope, man. That guy's nowhere near. He'd have to either like get into a tournament, win a tournament, get some. He'd have to move up. He had to get some fights, because like unlike the UFC where Dana White's like, oh yeah, this person's in the mix. Like with Glory, their thing is, I think you have to at least be, I want to say 1, 2, or 3. Like anybody in the top 3, they could get a title shot, or if you won one of their tournaments.
Speaking of Alex Pereira and his MMA dreams, another real quick before we move on to the UFC picks today, came across my attention that Giga, we joke about Giga time, and he's one of your favorite fighters, another kickboxer, Giga Chikadze. He's been looking for a fight in the UFC. I'm sitting there trying to get Alex Pereira somewhere in the MMA world. Giga can't even get a fight. Both of them were like 2 or 3, maybe even 4-0 last year, him and Kevin Holland, and both of them were trying to get a fight. Giga even hopped in his car. He drove from LA to Vegas twice, tried to get a fight, couldn't get a fight. Before we hop on the picks, you think Giga gets a fight anytime soon? And who do you think is a good matchup for him?
That's the thing. Like, my thing is Giga trying to pull a Ryan Hall, or is Giga just trying to fight anybody? Because Ryan Hall, he was trying to get somebody in the top 5. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, hey man, if he's trying to fight anybody, yeah, I would say if he's trying to fight anybody, I'm sure there are plenty of people. I mean, why not maybe take a Cub Swanson? He's a banger. Striker versus striker, or maybe even a Jeremy Stevens. I don't think he has anybody coming up.
Well, so it's funny. They actually tried to line up him with Jeremy Stevens before, and Jeremy then ghosted him, and now Jeremy's talking about going up to 155. That was actually in the news article I read off of MMA Fighting. Mm-hmm. And even the Jamie Simmons fight that he had last in was supposed to be Arnold Allen, and Arnold Allen dropped out and nowhere to be found. So he's having a hard time. People wanting to line up with him. 145-pound division has no shortage of people in it. So hoping he gets something soon. always some fun fights. You never know. The way Frankie Edgar's going, he might just hop up and go back to 145 and fight him. Who knows? Frankie,
Actually, you know what? You know would be a good one? As in Barboza.
Yeah, that would be fun.
If he's free, exactly, man. 2 strikers, you know, everybody wants to see that. Everybody wants to see Stan and Bang anyway.
Depends where Edson wants to fight at too, because he goes between so many different divisions right now.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and hop into our UFC Vegas 18 picks. But before we do, I want to kick it over to my man, Erik Johnson. He was nice enough with the snow and everything. He couldn't quite make it. He had some meetings and everything. Everybody knows Erik's a teacher as well. So he had some meetings. So he sent us his picks. So check those out real quick, and then we'll be right back.
Hey, everybody. Erik here, making my picks. Sorry, I got to phone him in this time. I'm doing my best to make it live. But looking at that UFC Vegas 18 card, I can never go against Overeem. Alistair has been my dude since watching him as a kid growing up. And I'm just hoping that we see glimpses of the old Alistair Overeem. I say this every fight. I'm going to say it every fight. So I'm taking him. Volkov is no joke. That dude drops bombs. But I'm hoping that we see the Overeem that picked apart Brock Lesnar years ago, and he picks and chooses his spots and gets in there and takes care of work. Looking at the co-main event, Frankie Edgar. I'm a New York guy. Can't go against Frankie. That's an unsaid rule. So Frankie Edgar, he could be fighting my parents. I'm taking Frankie every day. No questions asked. Looking at a pick or a fight that I like that isn't on the main card, and I don't understand why. I know you've got to pull viewers into the preliminary card, but to me, any fight with Michael Johnson and Clay Guida has to be on the main card. You put your primetime players in primetime spots. I don't get it, but I'm going to rock with it. Clay is that guy where if you bet against him, you're going to pay. And Michael Johnson is that guy that if he shows up ready to go, which I think he's going to, I've done my best to try to watch what's going on in camp and what he's been going through. I think Michael pulls this one out and finally gets on the tear that we have all expected him to be on. And he takes 3 steps forward and then a step back in a fight that I hate to say it because I'm not training with him. I'm not a fighter. But as a coach, we go through games where we'll have 2 huge games and then a game that isn't as big and then a huge game, and we overlook that one not as big game. I don't think he overlooks Guida in this one. I think that Clay's past and skill set and never dying energy makes you give him that respect, but I just see Michael Johnson being able to pull this one out. Probably, if he's going to win it, it's going to be a finish. You're not going to beat Clay in a decision. He just doesn't stop. So I'm saying second round for that one. If I got to go back and pick how the fights end, Frankie is going to take that one to a decision. I think that Frankie is just going to rely on his wrestling. You know, he's got great stand-up, but I think that's the way that one goes. And if Overeem is going to pull this one out, it's going to be second round, spectacular knockout. So, hey, we're going to see. If I get these picks all wrong, feel free to fry me on Twitter. I'll be online with Mike and Brandon and everyone else. And, hey, I'm all about the smoke if I'm wrong.
All right, guys, that was Erik Johnson. Thanks, Erik, for those picks. Obviously, he went with Overeem. He went with his man Frankie Edgar. And then, of course, Michael Johnson, who's actually a favorite in this fight against Clay Guida, but never really know what to expect with Clay Guida. UFC Vegas 18 happening this weekend. Brandon, we'll start with you. Alistair Overeem, Alexander Volkov. Overeem's been fighting well lately. He's won 4 of his last 5. Can he and he's also not that much of an underdog, only plus 145. I think it's moved up to maybe 155 or 160. Volkov's now minus 185. Who do you see winning and why?
So Overeem, it's the Demolition Man, the Reem. I think I think they're both. I'm saying they're both good kickboxers, but I think Alistair Overeem hits harder, and I think he's a little bit more technical than Volkov. So I'm picking the Reem.
I've gone back and forth on this one because, I mean, honestly, Overeem was a few seconds away from winning his last 5 fights if it wasn't for, what happened with Rosenstruck at the end and, getting his whole lip ripped open.
Yep.
But Volkov's been winning quite a few fights too. His only losses have been Blades and Derek Lewis, who are matching up later next month, and that's not any shame there too. Man, I got to go with Volkov just because he's 8 years younger. He's only 32 years old. He's a little bit bigger than Overeem. He's 6'7", so maybe he'll have a little bit of reach on Overeem. Overeem hasn't looked that great in his last few fights, even though he's won. I'm going to go with Volkov. I'm going to stick with that one. In our co-main, got Cory Sandhagen. A lot of people slept on him last time when he fought Marlon Moraes. A lot of people picked against him. He showed up and showed out. Frankie the Answer. Edgar, always a fan favorite. Everybody knows one of my favorite fighters. Frankie, still have an open invitation whenever you want to come on Art of MMA. I'm just going to throw that out there. Go ahead and let me know who you think's going to win that one.
Hey, man, you already know what it is, man. Jersey, all day, every day. Frankie Edgar is going to take it. I just think, man, too much experience. I think do I think he'll strike with Sandhagen? Of course. He likes to box. He's got good head movement. But I also think he will try to incorporate his wrestling, take him down, maybe hit some ground and pound. I think he's going to mix it up.
So I just said that about Frankie Edgar, and I'm pretty sure he's never going to come on the show after I say this. But I'm actually going with Sandhagen. You're talking about a guy 11 years younger, 28 years old, has won 8 out of 9 fights or something like that. The only loss is to the guy now challenging for the title in Alamon Sterling. He's been very active. He had a quick fight against Marlon Moraes with that head kick. Frankie looked good against Pedro Munoz at times, but he also looked bad against him at times. Can't really blame Frankie. You're going to sit there and look at his losses. I mean, out of his 8 losses, his last few have been Korean Zombie, no shame in that. Max Holloway, no shame in that. Brian Ortega, no shame in that. Jose Aldo was both of the 2 losses, like between a bunch of wins, but he lost in 2016 to him and 2013 to him. And then the 2 losses to Benson Henderson before that. And then you have to go all the way back to, of course, the Gray Maynard, series of fights with him. So Frankie's never lost a fight he was supposed to win, but unfortunately he's a big underdog in this one. You're talking about plus 330 right now. Cory Sandhagen's anywhere from minus 400 to minus 450. I got a lot of loyalty to Frankie, but I got to go with Sandhagen in this one. I think he's younger. I think he's faster. I think it's going to go to a decision. I don't think it's going to be a stoppage, but I got to go with Sandhagen. So as everybody knows, we like to pick a fight that interests us. Brandon, feel free. The floor is yours. I'll let you go first.
All right, man. I mean, you know me. I usually always go with the ladies, but not this time. This time I'm actually going to pick the Mike Rodriguez fight because I kind of want to see how it is that he's going to bounce off that fight that he had with Ed Herman. You know, the fight that he was winning, that he won, but the ref didn't see. The tap. Yeah. Actually, no, it was Ed Herman. He got kicked in the body, and he was like, "Oh no, it was to the groin."
Yeah, they stopped. Yeah. They stopped it for that. Yeah, that's what you're right.
So I'm kind of looking forward to Mike Rodriguez. I think he'll get back in. I think he'll get a W this time.
I honestly don't know who's going to win that fight because Marcus is a big dude. He's 6'6", like for 205. That's a big dude. But I will say this about that Rodriguez Herman fight: you got to finish it. Just because you didn't get your way and they continued to fight, he still got stopped.
Yep.
Like, it's not like he lost a decision or anything and it just, he should have won the fight earlier. He tapped out. Like, he got stuck in a Kimura later on and got tapped out. So, unfortunately, things happen in a fight. The ref can't see everything. Everybody at home could clearly see that it was a body kick and not a groin kick. But you know what? Ed Herman's a veteran. He sold it. He acted. He pulled his LeBron James out. Kudos to him. It happened, right? But just because something didn't go your way doesn't mean you couldn't have kicked him in the body again. Doesn't mean you're going to get caught in a submission later in the 3rd round because you're so dejected. I mean, you got to step up and keep fighting. That said, they're both pretty around the same age, 32 and 35. I think Rodriguez should win this fight, but we shall see. I kind of agree with you. My fight that I'm looking forward to is another one with a bunch of guys with a bunch of wins in a row. I'm talking about Diego Pereira, and I'm talking about Beneil Dariush. Dariush has won 5 in a row. Ferreira's won 6 in a row. Pereira, of course, coming off a little bit of an absence because he hasn't fought in a year, but that last fight he won, he tapped out Mr. Anthony Pettis, who we were just talking about going on to the PFL to be the face of it. He's fought some tough guys. Of course, Jared Gordon, always a friend of the show. He knocked him out. We just talked about Alban Mercier. He beat him back in 2016. Dariush always fighting whoever they throw against him. You know, still remember that draw with Evan Dunham a few years ago. That was a really great fight. He just beat Scott Holtzman back in August. I'm going with Dariush just because he's been more active. He fought 2 times in the last year where we haven't seen Diego in a year. But that's my pick for that fight. You have any opinion on that one?
Yeah, actually, I'm not gonna lie to you. This fight is on my radar as well. When I saw both guys, both of them come from good camps. Dariush is with King's MMA, so you know he'd be training with Kelvin Gastelum and everybody there, and Fabricio Verdum.
And Ferreira's with Fortis.
Yep, exactly. Ferreira's with Fortis. So I mean, they both come from good camps, but I like you. I'm choosing Dariush as well because I think, man, if this fight goes to the ground, I'm giving the edge to Dariush because that's really what he's known for. He is known for his jiu-jitsu, but he's been training at King's MMA.
They both got a bunch of subs.
Yeah, I know because I think Pereira is a jiu-jitsu black belt as well. So, but I just think that Dariush is a little bit more maybe slicker. I want to say, you know, maybe not better, but slicker. And then striking wise, like I said, man, dude, you're hanging out at King's MMA. Those dudes know how to strike, especially with their head coach. You know, because he used to run shoot box back in the day. So I'm with you. I'm leaning towards Dariush as well.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's our picks. Brandon, you got anything else to add this week, man?
I mean, just hey, it should be some good fights. I hope those that watch this, maybe they did watch Glory, give kickboxing a chance. If not, hey man, we're always gonna be here to talk MMA as always.
Hey, YouTube's your friend. Go watch those highlights. Of course, UFC Vegas 18 this weekend. We just got done talking. Next week we got UFC 258. Has there been any word, Brandon, on when Bellator is gonna start running again?
Oh, yeah, actually, there's been a report, a couple of sources that Bellator is going to do 2 shows in April. I want to say it was April 10th and April 16th were the 2 dates that they have booked. Both of them Fridays. No, so
that's crazy, man. That was crazy. They were going toe to toe with the UFC throughout much of the fall, and then all of a sudden now they're a huge break.
Yeah, so
I feel like they're losing all their momentum.
Yeah, so it's gonna be April. They're gonna do 2 shows in April. I guess they're gonna be on Fridays now instead of Thursdays.
Hopefully, one of those shows is that Pitbull McKee fight.
Well, yeah. Well, I think he has to go up against what's the name first, Sanchez.
I thought the McKee fight was the final.
No, but Pitbull's
got one more fight.
Yeah. He's got to fight Sanchez.
Man, that whole thing was had so much momentum, and now it's just dead because they took so long.
Yep.
I mean, obviously with COVID, everything gets put up in the air. It's hard to run venues. You know, they've been running the Mohegan Sun out in Connecticut, so there's a little bit different rules for stuff like that. The Northeast has been a little bit more locked down than some of the places that Dana's been running events, and obviously Dana has a little bit more money to spread around and get some events where he wants to get. I feel kind of bad for some of the guys fighting this weekend because some of the ones that fought the last weekend, they had crowd, and now we're going back to no crowd back in Vegas, so be a little disappointing, but definitely some great fights to look forward to this weekend.
Well, I was going to say, I know in Vegas, I think they're going to try to, I think they're doing contest winners and stuff like that. So they're having contests to have some fans come out to their shows.
Room in the Apex for that?
I guess so, because it's kind of like the Ultimate Fighter or like Dana's White Contender Series, where I think usually before with the Ultimate Fighter, you used to be able to have your coaches and you have some of your family and friends. So they might be doing something like that.
They need to do like wrestling was doing, where they had the wrestlers around the ring and stuff like that to kind of create a crowd. Have the fighters that aren't fighting or whatever that are just there, have them kind of gathering around and cheering on. It just made such a difference last weekend with the fights, or 2 weeks ago. I'm sorry, with the crowd.
I was gonna say, I just want to say one thing. The dates for Bellator is April 9th and April 18th. No, 16th. I was right. April 9th and April 16th.
Do they have a main event yet or no?
No, not yet. That everybody wants one of them to be the Pitbull versus Sanchez fight. So we'll have to wait and see.
Hopefully soon. But with that said, we will see you next week. Art of MMA, obviously back every single Tuesday. Brandon, tell them what they're supposed to do.
Like and subscribe, man. Share, tell your friends, spread the word.
Click those buttons. Hit the notification bell. You'll never miss another episode. With that said, this is Art of MMA. I'm Mike Ginn. That's Brandon Cuttino. We'll see you next week.